Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of our business leadership series. Last episode, we brought on Verizon Consumer CEO Sam Paff, and it was amazing hearing his stories. Now, today, we have the owner of Millburn Deli coming on, Andrew Morgan. It'll be interesting to hear what he has to say. You know, we have a lot of things to talk about, especially Jersey Mike Gate, so we'll see what happens, and we'll be back with you after the trailer. Welcome back, everyone. We're now with Andrew Morgan, the owner of Millburn Deli. Around a month ago, Millburn Deli made a startling announcement that they were going to be acquired by Jersey Mike's. Now, that announcement really made me appreciate Millburn Deli for what it is, you know, the fact that I was going to lose it. But now that, Andrew, now that you're here now, maybe you could explain the strategy behind Jersey Mike Gate.
So every year we post something. Typically, it goes nowhere. People don't buy it. Nobody believes it. And so we thought this year we would post something that seemed a little more believable. Initially, the idea was going to be that we were partnering with them, and we changed it to being acquired by. And thought maybe we'd get a little more buy-in if we posted the joke the day before, and then posted the, haha, this was a joke on April 1st.
Yeah, because I was talking to my family on that day. I'm like, I don't think this is a joke. It's March 31st. I don't think they're joking with us, you know?
Well, again, I think we posted it. Sunday's typically my day off, the day of the week I take off. And when it started blowing up, my wife was not thrilled that I was spending my day dealing with it. And I'll tell you guys something that is not public. So that night, it was up all day. At about 7:30 at night, we got a call from General Counsel from Jersey Mike's. And they thought it was funny, but they were like, just make sure you post a retraction. And we're like, of course, tomorrow morning we're posting a retraction. We got you. About a half an hour later, they called again and said, actually, we've reconsidered and we want you to post the retraction right now. So we were like kind of bummed because we thought, this is all going to happen on March 31st. It's not going to seem like an April Fool's joke. Maybe some people won't be as on board with it being funny, but we didn't have a ton of choice. So we posted the retraction and left it up. And then 30 minutes later, we get a call from the owner of Jersey Mike's who says, I want the original post gone.
Oh my God.
So while we didn't say anything defamatory about Jersey Mike's and we thought it was all in good fun, just to be 100%, we took it all down. So it was originally planned to be an April Fool's joke. It ended up all happening on March 31st, but that's why.
Well, I appreciate that you guys are still here today in town and that I can always count on my favorite sandwich.
We are too. And honestly, we posted it thinking no one would buy it. And I think the response we got when people were hurt and upset was very flattering, honestly.
Right. So we all appreciate how loved you guys are in town. Could you give me a little bit of like a brief history of the deli?
Sure. From my understanding, it started in 1946 with the Jacobs family, who the gentleman's name was Bert Jacobs, ran it until about the mid-'80s, handed it off to his son, Terry Jacobs. He didn't seem super interested in running it, so in about 1991 sold it to my family, which has been in the restaurant industry since the 70s. My parents owned restaurants, and so they took over in 1991, I was 12 years old, and they put me to work, and this is actually the only job I've ever had. My parents sort of stepped back once I finished business school, which was, I think, 2006, and it's been me, and my parents have been mostly retired since about then.
Did you always want to be part of the deli, or did you want to do something else originally?
I wanted to do anything but the deli, because when I was 12 and my parents made me work, I think the idea was that I was going to do the opposite. I was going to be a suit and tie guy, go into finance like a lot of people do. So I went to Rutgers, and then I went back to Rutgers grad school to get my MBA. I graduated, set up a bunch of interviews, and I think it was like on my third interview when I was sitting there in a suit and tie, and I was like, this is not for me. So.
Now, you guys have always had one location, the one and only in Millburn. Mm-hmm. At what point did you realize it was the time to expand?
It's a good question. I think when I took over from my dad's mantra was always, there's two statuses for businesses. You're growing or you're dying. And we had reached a point where we were busy a lot, and we'd gotten to a point where we just thought, how much more can we really do in a single space? We initially, I don't know if you're aware, we briefly opened a restaurant for it was like maybe 2 months next to the deli. This might be before your time.
I think I recall.
So we decided we were going to open up another brand. We built out this whole restaurant right next to the deli. We called it Next Door. It was open for I think 3 months. It was doing okay, but we kind of looked around the room and we were like, why are we trying to start a different brand? Why don't we just open more delis? So we shut it down. We moved our takeout to what is now Millburn Deli 2, and then we started looking for new locations.
So, if we were in there right now, my mother's favorite sandwich is the Gobbler, and everyone would be going crazy, screaming, Gobbler, Gobbler, and honking the horn.
Sure.
How did that become a tradition?
Sadly, like most things, the story is actually far more boring than the event. So when we first came up with the Gobbler in the 90s.
90s?
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm older than you think. We didn't have a steam tray, where things that stay warm. So the stuffing would be pre-portioned and it would be cold. And we had a microwave where we would just heat up the stuffing. So every time somebody had ordered a Gobbler, you'd call for a Gobbler, meaning you needed stuffing warmed. It became this thing where we were yelling Gobbler so often that it became background noise and the person wasn't hearing it. So that's when he started incorporating the horn. So it started out as a matter of practicality, not as a matter of let's create this fun thing. But it evolved into that. And at some point when we got a steam table and we stopped saying it, you would get people who were like, oh, you don't do the Gobbler thing anymore. So it just became part of our traditions. And now, despite the fact that the stuffing is warm all the time, we do it in all locations.
Now, it must have been a hard time during COVID. How did you guys pivot during that time, and what strategies do you still implement today from that?
COVID, we got, I will say, incredibly lucky. So as I mentioned before, we'd opened that restaurant, and that was right around the time that we had signed with DoorDash, and online ordering was becoming a much bigger thing. So when we shut down the restaurant, we moved all of that into that middle building. All of the DoorDash, all of the Grubhub, all of the Uber, all of that was done in that middle building. So when COVID hit, we closed for 17 days like most people did because we didn't really know what to do. But then when we reopened, we had this whole thing built out specifically for takeout. It wasn't where you had to walk in like you do in the original deli. Everything was computerized. Orders came to a computer screen. So we felt fortunate in that we lucked out and were set up for when COVID hit. Like every other business, there was a ton of adjustments to make and a ton of other challenges. But I think we lucked out in that we were set up better than a lot of people were.
So how would you say your other locations, would you say they're all run the same way, or would you say you run the other ones a little bit differently?
So the other ones are run much more akin to what we term as the takeout building that I'm talking about now. 50% of our business in most of the other locations is order ahead. So in Millburn, if 50% of people walk in, 20% of people order online, and another 30% order on DoorDash. The expansion locations are significantly more like walk in, walk out. Most people aren't walking in and ordering the way they are in Millburn.
So whenever I'm there, it's always packed and the food always comes out efficiently.
Knock on wood.
So how many sandwiches would you say you sell in a day, and what's the most popular one?
So how many in a day in just one location?
Yeah.
Jeez, I'd probably guess 1,500 to 2,000 sandwiches in a day. In Millburn, Millburn's our busiest store, so to be fair. And which is our most popular? Most popular single sandwich actually is the Godfather. Do you know that story?
Yes.
Okay. So that's actually not even a sandwich that we came up with. That's a sandwich that a Millburn high school kid came up with. Well, I think he was in middle school at the time, but and the most popular category by far is still Sloppy Joe's.
You could explain the story for our viewers who might not know that.
Sure. So there was a kid named Danny Brenner. He was in Millburn. I think he was in 8th grade at the time. And he would come in every day and he would order this sandwich, and we would make fun of him for it all the time. I was one of the people who at the time was still working the floor making the sandwiches. And we would tease him that it was gross and how are you ordering that? And every day he would come in and beg us to put it on the menu. Excuse me. And I said, that's just not something we do. We come up with our own stuff. He pushed it so hard. He said, look, if I can get my friends to come in and order it and I can sell a lot of them, would you consider it? And so we made a joke that if you could beat, there was another guy who worked at the time, this guy in Halo online, because I guess, I'm not a gamer, but I guess they played games online. I said, if you could beat this guy online in Halo, we'll give you your sandwich for a week. And I guess he did. And his gamer tag was the Godfather. So that's what he wanted to name the sandwich. And we named the sandwich that for a week, and he made sure he brought his friends every goddamn day, and we sold 20, 25 a day, and just kept it on, and it took on a life of its own. And his dad still comes in from time to time asking for royalties, and so that's how that started.
So what's your favorite?
My favorite sandwich. Oh, God, I've eaten so many. Probably the Grillery. It's kind of plain and basic, but that's me. I'm kind of boring, plain and basic.
So, well, there's traditionals that people know, like the Godfather and Gobbler. Do you have any plans for new sandwiches in the future?
We do. We try to do something new every month. It's tough the bigger you get because rolling out a sandwich isn't just like it used to be. So when it was just me and my family, we could, make a couple different types of new sandwiches, put them on the counter. When guests come in, you get instant feedback. They try a sample. Now it has to be done all internally. There have to be documents distributed to each location. Here's the recipe. Here's how you make it. Here's the products you need to order. But we do try to introduce new things. So I don't know how familiar you are with the menu, but the Blazing Hot Honey was one we just did. You're going to ask me what's on it, and I'm going to forget because we just came up with it. But it's been selling so well. It's like chicken cutlet, pepperoni, Mike's Hot Honey on like a toasted ciabatta. We did it as a special of the month, and we've kept it on for the last 4 months because it's been doing so well.
So it's doing well?
So the menu is like an evolving thing. We don't look at the menu and say, I'm going to change these 5 sandwiches today. We try to come up with something, and if that sells, we'll add it and maybe chop off the bottom one that isn't selling.
Now, so I was told to ask this by my vice principal.
Uh-oh.
He said he used to like the, I think they're like Raisin cookies, but he said you guys only have chocolate now. Do you ever plan to bring those back?
So unfortunately, the Oatmeal Raisin cookies were a victim of expansion. As you grow, sometimes the less selling things don't make the cut. I would say in Millburn, there's always a chance because Millburn will always be a bit unique. If he visits the other stores, I would say definitely not. But yeah, we try to do a lot of stuff homemade, so they're homemade cookies. It's not somewhere you can get anywhere else. Maybe, I don't want to promise, but it was a victim of expansion because as we try to simplify the expansion kitchens, we were finding they were having a tough time cooking them correctly, and so there's nothing worse than like a raw cookie or a burnt cookie, so we killed them.
All right. And to end it off, now you've been in the business for a long time and have seen record growth during your time and expansion. So what do you think it means to be an effective business leader?
Oh boy, that's deep. I think being an effective business leader is first and foremost taking care of your people. The people who work for me, I will tell you, I brought in a business partner about 7 years ago. And something I didn't realize that I did was that I tend to focus more on my staff than the guests. And I think it's because my belief is if I take really good care of them, that they'll take really good care of my guests, and that they'll take pride in what they do, and that they'll put out a better quality product. And the second part of that was, I would say, is like, I don't think in terms of, how do I make more money? I don't think, how do I squeeze more margins out of this product? I think, like, even for the joke that we put out, like, what would be funny? Not what's going to drive somebody to buy something in the store, not how can I make 5 more cents on the sandwich. I think what's better, what's a better experience for people, and what will help my people excel in their jobs. And so far I've found, for me, and at least in this business, that has led to staff staying with me 10, 15, 20 years. I think one of your helpers here mentioned that their favorite person in the store is someone who's been there since 1996. So we focus on that, try to do things that others in our industry don't do. Healthcare, we have free health insurance, 401ks, paid vacations, free dental. We try to do all of the things that aren't done in our industry to take care of people. And for me, that's worked out.
It's amazing. Thank you for coming on today. It was a pleasure.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
To conclude our episode, it was amazing hearing from Andrew Morgan and his stories, especially the one about how the Godfather sandwich came to be. I'm very excited. Stay tuned. Next week, we're bringing on the CEO of the New Jersey Hall of Fame, Steve Edwards. That's going to be amazing. Check it out.